Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership of the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School!
Oh, this week we're going to get into a 101, and we're going to do our best director ensembles.
Let's dive on in. Alright everybody, I'm Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Palter.
And if you like what you see / hear, please like and subscribe. You can find us in all the spaces and places that people what?
Find good media.
That is right. We have festivals, we do that one scene reviews, we do punishment reviews, and we occasionally get to do these 101s.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done one, so I was excited to do this. You know, this was kind of an evolution of our old show, a damn movie podcast that we did for so long. Every episode we had top fives.
Yep, exactly.
Top five. And, you know, I think we're going to do about 3 each. Do you want to kind of explain what the director ensemble is?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I made and I've said this since I off the cuff said this when we reviewed it, 2046. But that I guess maybe it was in the Grandmaster where I had said that I feel like I finally saw a good version of Cloud Atlas.
Yeah.
Because Wong Kar-wai, as we found out when we did, we just finished that festival, that we found out that it was like, oh, he uses this ensemble of actors. He has this troupe, right? Which again feels very much like sort of something you would see back in the day with somebody like a Powell and Pressburger,
sure.
Right? There were like these directors or Hitchcock even, where they had a group that it was like, oh, these are my tried and true people. And you kind of knew if they showed up, if you saw them in this, you're like, what is this, a Hitchcock film? And it's like, no, it is, like,
yeah.
And so, but we see less of it nowadays, I think,
sure.
Or it's less ubiquitous.
Yeah.
But I just thought it'd be fun to kind of look at like, who are some directors that we like who do have an ensemble or a troupe that they're using, and how does that strengthen or sort of alter the universes that they're creating?
Yeah, love it. Awesome. All right, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. I'll do kind of the first one that that popped out to me that wasn't one I had kind of thought about until I was actually listening to an episode of the podcast Smartless with him. And it is Steven Soderberg.
Oh, good one.
And I think it's really interesting. And, you can go, most of the people are in the Ocean's movies, right? So you go Matt Damon, George Clooney, Julia Roberts, but then you have like Catherine Zeta-Jones, Don Cheadle, Benicio del Toro.
I was going to say Benicio has to be in there. Yeah.
Right. Well, but then this is the thing that I think makes it so interesting is that I think most of the time we see directors that are genre directors that do this, or directors who are really working in a particular kind of lane that do this stuff.
Yeah.
But Soderbergh's all over the place, right?
That's a great one I hadn't thought of.
Because you have like the Ocean's movies that are really comedies.
That's easy, yeah.
But then you go, a bunch of those same people are in things like Traffic or Contagion, right? And you're like, yeah. And then I started thinking about it and I was like, how else do you get Michael Douglas as Liberace with Matt Damon as his lover, unless it's Soderbergh, who's worked with both of those guys in other things and is like, I already have somebody in mind. You would never pick those actors for those roles.
It's true, yeah. No, and, Soderbergh's excellent, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, some of his stuff I'm kind of like whatever on, but the good stuff...
It's because he does so much.
Yeah, he really does. He just keeps making movies, I think it's his... but his great shit, like stuff like Traffic and Out of Sight, I absolutely just, love that shit.
Amazing.
So
and I think, again, like, to be like, oh, you have this group of people that you know that they're probably A, easy to work with, B, super versatile because you work with them so much that you're like, oh yeah, we don't normally see these talents of this person doing this, but I know they have it in them. That's going to give you the ability to put people in what could otherwise be considered kind of risky positions as an actor, because you already know, oh yeah, they've got this.
Yeah, for sure. No, and he's a director's director, right? Like he's one of those guys, but will continue to always do stuff.
In that Smartless episode, he said he was a synthesizer. He's like, I'm not great creatively on my own. He's like, I'm really good at pulling people together.
Yeah, no, I've heard him say that before.
Making a thing work,
I've heard him say that, and he said one of the best things of his career one of the best things he realized in his career is like, I'm not a very good writer. I'll let other people do that.
It's not my strength.
Yeah. And I think that's really, I mean, that's a really good attitude to have, right?
Yeah.
Like to be aware of your weaknesses and say, hey, I need some help here.
Yeah.
Like, I respect that. And, he's a better director for it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll pull in the right people if you realize that.
And you'll know a good story. So.
Oh yeah, totally.
All right. Let me move on. This one might be probably the most obvious one. So I'm going to do it. It may be on your list. I'm not sure, but it's the Coens. You got to do the Coen Brothers.
I didn't, and I thought a lot about it, but yeah, go for it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got Buscemi, obviously, big one. Holly Hunter, Frances McDormand, another huge one.
Don't they kill Buscemi in every movie that he's been in?
I think almost everyone, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we got John Goodman, Totoro, and Clooney.
Yep.
So, man, that's a powerhouse of people, and how much we love Coens. There's and again, they're the directors who just keep making movies, so they have all these opportunities to work with these people multiple times. I would probably say Goodman they use him the best. I mean, Walter, you can't. I mean, what do you do there? And then you throw in Barton Fink and some of the other things, even something like "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," where it's very
he's
small.
the Cyclops.
Yeah, so good.
It throws the frog against the tree. Well, now here's the thing, and I didn't until you said I hadn't really thought about it. With Buscemi, Turturro, and Goodman, when they are in a Coen Brothers movie, that's when they're all three of those guys are great in everything they do. But it's like there's a particular kind of character that they play that they only play when they're in a Coen's film.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't, you see John Goodman and other stuff, and you know what? He's great. He does a really solid job all the time.
Yeah.
But when he's in a Coen Brothers movie, they stretch him like putty into something more than you ever normally see. Turturro definitely does that.
100%.
Because Turturro I like, but sometimes I'm like, he's kind of corny, and he's always amazing in every Coen Brothers movie.
No, I think there's something to that. Absolutely. I think it's the worlds they're creating, right? I think, and the characters, like you think of something like Fargo, where when that movie came out, it was all about how these people talked funny, right? And just and everything. And it's like, no, that's actually a real place, but it's also like there's some like I don't know, the character idiosyncrasies that they create with their characters, right, is very unique to them, and they pick out these little things. Even something like No Country for Old Men, or something like when he comes up to the trailer to the lady, he's like, asking where they are, where they've been, or whatever. Just that lady, just someone like that. Even it's a very small character, they have these elements.
They're like, this is really important to have here.
And then when you throw in knowing these people, knowing how you can mold them, knowing what great actors they are, you can kind of do anything.
It is funny. Yeah. It's almost like they're, it's like, well, anybody can teach you gymnastics, but these one coaches over here are also going to have you juggle with one hand while you're doing it. That's the Coens, where they're like, here's your character, here's your motivation. And they're like, great. And you're like, but you have this weird lisp. Exactly. And you're like, wait, what? And these actors are actors where they're like, oh, this person's game for it over and over and over again. Because sometimes people aren't, right? And there have been people in the past who've talked about the Coens and been like, yeah, it was a really great learning experience. And you're like, oh, not the right fit, right? Mm-hmm. But when somebody, obviously Goodman, he was doing this stuff with the Coens when he was still doing Roseanne. No one had really was using him as an actor's actor back then. So.
Yeah, no, and they just let him breathe. They create a world, and they can kind of let them go off on their own. Like, how would you do this?
Yeah, totally.
I love it. And a long time working relationship can obviously help that.
Yeah.
So. Right, number two?
My number two, probably the first one I thought of, or the second one. We realized this when we did a festival of his on our show way back. It was probably, I think, maybe our first festival or second that we ever did. It is Joe Dante.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And if you think
that was
about
one of our first festivals.
Dick Miller.
Yeah.
Dick Miller, if Dick Miller is in a movie, it's probably a Joe Dante film, right?
He's that guy.
I'm going to show you him right here. Right? If you grew up watching movies in the 80s
and 90s
and into the 90s, you've seen Dick Miller before, and usually you've been like, oh, is this a Joe Dante film?
I love Inner Space so much.
Oh
It's
my
such
God.
a good one.
Well, and let's go with a couple other people that are in Inner Space
Yeah.
that are another part of his ensemble. You have Kevin McCarthy, right, with his pure white hair, who's the bad guy in Inner Space.
He's the bad guy in Burbs, right?
Yep. And then you have Robert Picardo,
Mm-hmm.
of course, who is the
cowboy.
yeah, I'm the old cowboy from the Rio Grande, but my legs aren't bowed and my skin's not tan, right? Yeah. Who then ends up, Martin Short becomes him at one point.
Yes.
But you think about those faces, Dick Miller, Kevin McCarthy, and Robert Picardo, and you're like, that's completely Joe Dante. Now, they never play main characters, but they're like this set dressing that he uses. And all I can think is that directors...
you get your stars, and then you build these people around
You
them.
build it around them. And
That's
all
good.
I can think of is that, like... There must be, and I have this with another one on my list, that like when you're a director and you've already started to make a couple of things, that when you close your eyes and you like envision the, you know, the sculpture of the set, the way that, you know, are the streets slick and shiny? Is it overcast? Like as you're picturing that, you're also populating it with little people.
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing that, you're imagining what those faces look like. You're sketching them out. And I think with some people like the Coens, and I think with somebody like Joe Dante, it's like, not that any of the people that I named are unattractive or ugly, or the people that you named, but it's like they have character. Buscemi's got a character to his face. Dick Miller has a character to his face and is going to do a certain kind of delivery, right?
Yep.
And I think there are just these directors where they're like, that's what I need. I got to sprinkle in. I don't want extras. I want my people. Even if they have one line, even if it's the guy who picks up the newspaper and goes, looks like rain, and walks back into his house, you're like, that's got to be Dick Miller, right?
Absolutely. I would recognize him like on the street. Like,
Oh, totally. Oh my God. If I saw Robert Picardo just walking down the street, and I'm not even a Star Trek fan, because I know that's like sort of a thing he's known for now.
Oh, okay.
But I would be like, oh my God, you're like the royalty of like my childhood of watching, you know, like I was one of the families that had a VHS of Inner Space, and so you watch it
Well, and
2-3 times a month for
and what are a couple
5
other
years.
movies I'm trying to think of that we did that
You had Gremlins.
Gremlins, that's right.
You've got The Explorers. We didn't do it, but you've got Small Soldiers is another one that's really big within kids growing up. More horror, but you've got The Howling.
Oh, The Howling.
The Howling.
That's
But
the one I couldn't remember.
and you know, I think when you go all the way back through his filmography, you realize he kind of came from that Corman sort of B-movie background where it was like, you do everything. I mean, Joe Dante's first film was Piranha, which actually Belinda Blasky's in. She's the one on the poster that's like, you know, it's
That's
like
right.
a knockoff of Jaws. But you go, yeah, like all the way back to then, it was like you work with people that you know aren't going to walk off set or show up drunk, or you know what I mean? And so
people you can trust.
yeah, so he kept all those people around even after he got like,
That's awesome.
you know, pretty successful. So
Good for. I think more directors need to do that. Like you said at the beginning of this is not as common as it kind of used to be.
yeah, it's really not.
All right, my number 2. This was the first one I thought of, and maybe on yours. I'm not sure, but I had to go Christopher Guest.
It's actually, it was going to be my number 1, so I'm going to switch out with a different one.
Okay.
But yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
Let's go for it.
you know, Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, Parker Posey, Michael McKean, Fred Willard, John Michael Higgins, who is underrated in all of this.
Oh, yeah.
Harry Shearer, Jane Lynch, Jennifer Coolidge. Like, there's there's so many, but like
It built and built and built as he was making movies. More people wanted to get in on it. I
for
feel
sure.
like.
And you know, if you don't know him, Christopher Guest is also a cast member in all of this as well. But he's the director. Obviously, Spinal Tap was Rob Reiner, but that really got them into the mockumentary space. And I think when you do stuff like a mockumentary, you know, you can have as many characters as you need, right?
Oh, totally. Well, because it's tonal. I think that that's part of it. And like, you know, you think about it, even after Spinal Tap, before Best in Show, Guest was toying with this. I don't know if you ever saw the Saturday Night Live sketch where him and Martin Short are trying to get men's synchronized swimming into the Olympics.
Amazing.
I'm not a strong swimmer, right? Just that whole thing is so amazing, but you're like,
God damn Martin Short.
I know.
He keeps coming up.
but he was toying with that same thing even then, you know? And so I think, yeah, once you had Best in Show came along, it's the first one I thought of also.
I mean, Waiting for Guffman was his first.
Or sorry, that's
his
what I meant
first
was Waiting
one.
for
and
Guffman.
that one too. Like you look at the music. You know, they brought the Spinal Tap musical side into their. They all love music, especially Shearer and those guys. You know, they all play, and so then that evolves into something like A Mighty Wind or something like that, where it's evolved. Spinal Tap basically, or some other version of like Spinal Tap, right? And, so
and it's the same three guys. Like that's the thing.
It's amazing. He took the formula and just kept going with it.
Yeah.
And it completely works, especially with his sense of humor. And he likes to like keep on these people like just like 5 seconds too long, right?
Yeah.
To where it's but you think of Parker Posey and John Michael Higgins, or is it John Michael Higgins? I can't remember.
No,
it might be
isn't.
the other guy.
It's the other guy.
It's the
with the braces.
Yeah, that guy. Their relationship in Best in Show is so insane.
I was at the Starbucks on one side of the street, and she was at the Starbucks on the other side of the street.
So genius.
Oh my God, it's so good. No, that was another one. Like I said, it was one that I had on my list too, and I think that it is in part because I think that you can set up a good premise for a sequence. Mm-hmm. And then really, I mean, so many of these people that you listed are from Second City TV or the Groundlings. Yeah. So these people have gotten their chops in improv. I mean,
and also have worked together longer than these movies have been being made.
Well, and this is the thing that I don't think people realize is like, if you're talking about real ad-libbing, like there's ad-libbing that you see in the credit sequences of like Anchorman movies and stuff like that. And Will Ferrell's pretty good at it, and it's pretty funny.
Oh yeah.
But
John C. Reilly as well, yeah.
Yeah, but I think even with those guys, and then to a lesser extent you get into watching like the ad-libbing outtakes of something like Bridesmaids or something like that. And it's like that's not real improv. Like that's not real ad-lib. That's like throwing out an idea that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
And if it sticks, great, it makes it into the final cut. And if it doesn't, whatever.
Yeah.
This is like they are enveloping these characters, and the stuff that they're coming up with is so like head and shoulders above any of that other kind of stuff that I was just giving as an example.
Yeah.
That it makes you realize why this troupe sticks around. And I have to say, for my money, one of the all-timer guys, which I would never have pegged him for being this, is Ed Begley Jr.
Oh yeah,
is stupidly funny.
Oh, so
in
good.
These when he's doing the Swedish Yiddish stuff, Hugen Hayden Hordenfladen, or How's It Hang a Grandma, like all that shit. I'm like, fuck you. Like, what is that?
No,
like,
I showed my kids Best in Show recently, and they're like, this is all like. My daughter was like, you can tell like this is improvised, but like it's so funny and weird.
It's so good.
Yeah.
They're so good. Yeah, I know. I was watching the scene with Fred Willard, the scene from Waiting for Guffman of Fred Willard with Catherine O'Hara.
Strike it.
Yeah, but it's during that, and they're in the matching tracksuits.
She is a fucking national treasure.
It is so insane, though. You're just watching it, and we consider ourselves bi-coastal if you consider the Great Lakes one of the coasts. Like, what? This is so insane.
He was born to just go. Right?
Oh yeah.
Like he just has that, like, I don't know. He's been doing comedy so long at this point. Like he just has it, and Christopher Guest completely sees it. I mean, honestly, that's the reason why Fred Willard got so big, was because of these movies.
Yeah, totally. So, I know. He had been a working actor for and obviously in so many TV shows and things like that. Yeah. I know.
Legend.
Well, and that was,
Catherine O'Hara, though. Oh my God. Like, I could watch her read a phone book. It's so good.
Such assholes.
All right, did you want to do your number one?
Yeah, and this isn't really, Christopher Guest probably would have been my number one. So this, we don't need to talk about it a lot, but this is sort of harken back. This is sort of an extra I had to go along with the Joe Dante thing. Another director who I think uses his same group, and when you see them you go, oh, is this one of his films? And that happened to me this week because I watched the 1988 remake of The Blob a couple nights ago. It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, it's so good. It's got Dylan, not Matt Dillon, but his ugly brother.
Oh,
it's amazing.
Yeah, I know who you're name.
Kevin Dillon. Kevin Dillon's the lead in it, and he's so good. But I saw while watching it,
the ugly Dylan.
Sorry. Jeffrey DeMunn was in it. He plays the sheriff, and I'm going to show a picture of him because he's one of that guys. And the second I saw him, I went, well, this isn't a Frank Darabont film.
Oh.
Like, why is Jeffrey DeMunn in it? Frank Darabont wrote it. He wrote the remake of The Blob.
Oh, okay.
So he
That makes sense. I didn't know that.
He pitched his buddy, Jeffrey DeMunn, to be in it, and Jeffrey DeMunn, Brian Libby, and William Sadler have all been in Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, The Mist. Yep. All of them have been in each one of those.
That's all of his movies, too.
Pretty much. Well, and then The Walking Dead, and all three of them were in The Walking Dead also. At least until he quit.
Yeah.
Once he quit, all those guys were like, nah, kill my character off.
Yeah. No, that's great. I hadn't thought about Darabont. That's an awesome one.
But when you see those three guys, Jeffrey DeMunn, Brian Libby, and William Sadler together, you go, whoa, yeah, that is all those movies.
Good one. I hadn't thought of him either.
Yeah.
Nice one.
But it's another one I think that like when you watch The Mist, you're like, there's a certain, I think because the guys were in Shawshank Redemption, when you watch The Mist and you're stuck in that little grocery store and all three of those dudes show up, there's a certain cachet of seriousness that they bring, even though the movie's The Mist and there's like tentacles and flying monsters.
Yeah.
It feels heavy because you're like, those are like the inmates from the from Shawshank Redemption.
Absolutely. All right, my last one here, maybe another obvious one if you've listened to us long enough to know my love for this guy, but I initially didn't have this on my list, and then I started listing the people out that this guy uses. And again, having these ensemble movies like in Oceans really helps and helps you see how they use them, how they work together. And, this guy's, all of his movies are kind of fast-paced and ensemble-y, but it's P.T. Anderson. And I had it on the list, but when I started doing it, writing out the actors that he uses on a regular basis, and some of them are in all the movies together. There's one that's probably less used as most, but like just looking at the acting heavies here, we got P.S. Hoffman,
yes,
Daniel Day-Lewis, John C. Reilly, Joaquin Phoenix, Julianne Moore, William H. Macy. And then, you could throw in someone like Luis Guzman or like Don Cheadle or something like that. Like that is like, I mean, just P.S. Hoffman, Daniel Day-Lewis, Joaquin alone. Like that's three. Like what the like?
Now, how many
different
actors. Daniel Day-Lewis?
He's in two.
He's in two. What's this? Why am I? I'm thinking
it's the Phantom Thread.
Phantom Thread, and then the other one is
There Will Be Blood, motherfucker.
Oh my god.
How could you forget that one?
I don't know, because I was thinking, I don't know. It's like in my head, I went from like The Master to Phantom Thread or something. Yeah. But you're totally right.
Yeah.
Wow.
He made a little movie called There Be Blood. You should watch it.
I know.
Anyways, but just at the, it had to move up to number one. I originally did have Christopher Guest as my number one as well, but I was just like,
it's kind of bonkers.
Is crazy. And then you throw in John C. Reilly, Julianne Moore, who's amazing. All of these people that are amazing.
Yeah.
Pretty easy one, I guess.
Wow.
But like, stuff like Magnolia, Boogie Nights. Two.
And Magnolia, Magnolia is like that's the tapestry. That's the grand tapestry that everything kind of comes out from.
I totally agree. But then he went on to use Joaquin, who The Master is one of my favorite P.T. Anderson movies.
Didn't really like the other one that he did.
Yeah, the Incoherent Vice.
Yeah, pretty much.
Vice.
Yeah.
So he's used him a few times, but still, like, I mean, just his performance alone in The Master is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then rest in peace, P.S. Hoffman as well. Just obviously a powerhouse. So
yeah, totally.
Anyways, just so many great films.
That's a great one. God, I wouldn't have even thought of that.
So many great films and so many great actors, and he obviously knows his shit and knows. And who wouldn't want to work with him? I mean, you could also put Philip Baker Hall in there.
Totally. And Ricky Jay, I think, shows up
Ricky Jay,
in several of his.
So
it is
he's
really.
He's got a big crew of people.
I mean, it's definitely a thing that I would want to do if I was someone who directed films, like, because it does feel classic. Like I mentioned with somebody like
work
Hitchcock.
With your friends too, right?
Well, and like I was mentioning with somebody with like with Hitchcock, or the other one that didn't make it on my list, but I thought about was Ingmar Bergman.
No, I had that on my list. So I had a couple. Liv Ullmann, Max von Sydow. I think you could easily do something like that. Obviously Scorsese's an easy one.
Yeah, totally.
You could do De Niro, Pesci, Keitel, DiCaprio.
Well, and
that's a powerhouse too.
And I didn't put it on my list, but I started to go down this rabbit hole. There's all of these old Italian sort of non-actory actors that are just this cachet that Scorsese uses. And that's why movies like Goodfellas and Casino have this vibe to them.
Yeah.
And dude, almost all of them went on to have illustrious careers
in The Sopranos.
Yes.
I know. I just rewatched the whole series, and
you're
all
like,
of them
oh
are
my
in there.
god, that's his. That's his. That's the
Paulie's in it. Paulie's
yeah,
in
you're like,
Goodfellas.
oh, that's the bookie from Casino, or that's
no.
that like
Vito,
I know
all of them.
it's so funny, but you're just like, yeah, it was just this group of like old Italian guys that probably hung out at the deli that Scorsese would go to.
Couple other ones that I had. Tarantino is an obvious one as well. I thought it may be on your list, but him and Sam Jackson, Michael Madsen, Tim Roth, Michael Parks.
Yes.
Anyways, Uma Thurman, Kurt Russell, and then I was really happy with this one. David Wayne. You get Paul Rudd, Adam Scott, Ken Marino, who's the funniest person alive, Elizabeth Banks, Joe Truglio, Michael Showalter, Michael Ian Black, all these guys, and basically the hot American state people. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
People from the state.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's a great one. I wouldn't have even thought of that.
Yeah, so those are a couple, but we had our list. We got them. Let's recap real quick. Yours were Soderberg,
yep,
Joe Dante,
and Frank Darabont.
Great list. Mine was Coen Brothers, Christopher Guest, and PTA. Paul Thomas Anderson.
Love it.
That was really fun.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching. Next week, we're going to begin our stand-up comedy festival. We're not doing stand-up comedy. We're watching movies about stand-up comedy.
I hope that's what we're doing.
But please join us. It's going to be a fun ride. We're excited.
Yeah, and we're going to be starting with Mike Birbiglia's Sleepwalk with Me.
Yeah, so join us. Like and subscribe. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Those are our most active channels. And thanks for watching.
Bye, you guys.